From 4th of July fireworks and Valentine's Day chocolates to Christmas poinsettias and Halloween candy, holidays not only bring plenty of joy, but they can also bring hidden dangers too, especially for pets. Today, we'll show you how to spot the dangers before your pets do, as well as answer your pet related questions on this episode of Ask the Doc, No Appointment Needed.
Funding for this program is brought to you by Michael J. Zinner, MD.
Send in your questions to questions@allhealthtv.com or AllHealthGo on Facebook or YouTube, or visit the Ask the Doc page on our website, allhealthtv.com.
Welcome to Ask the Doc, No Appointment Needed, the show where we encourage our viewers to send in their health-related questions. I'm Dr. Joy Carter, Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, and today we're going to discuss the things you need to be aware of during any holiday celebration that includes pets. All right, let's get started, guys. Looks like our first question is going to be from Pilar. ¿Qué tal, Dr. Carter? I love poinsettias at Christmas, but I recently heard that they can be toxic to pets. Does that also hold true for my beloved Siamese cat, Luna? All right, bienvenidos. All right, yes. So it can. Poinsettias are not as toxic as some people make them out to be, Pilar. They certainly can cause some stomach upset, and they can sometimes cause some skin irritation. In particular, the part of the poinsettia plant that tends to be toxic is the sap, okay? And that's what, if they get it on their lips, their tongue, their mouth, whatever, that can sometimes cause some irritation. They do have to ingest quite a bit for you to see signs of toxicity, but thankfully those signs are typically mild. And so that, like I said earlier, might include a little bit of vomiting, some drooling, and maybe even some diarrhea and just some skin irritation where the actual sap, came in contact with your pet. Now, I will say this, there are a lot of good resources as far as, numbers you can call and websites you can go on. Basically, ASPCA has a pet poison helpline. You can, Google them. And you can certainly call them if you have a possible toxicity, and they will give you recommendations as far as if you need to go to the vet or not. The same thing with Pet Poison Helpline. Also, too, you can get on those websites and you can also put in the name of a plant or a toxin that they got exposed to, and they will give you some information there. As well as if it's during, say, after hours and your regular vet is not open, any emergency hospital can certainly advise you if you should bring your pet in. So if they are exposed to something, it is better safe than sorry, Pilar. Even if you don't think it's toxic, I would certainly check online, or I would call your vet just to make sure, because they are going to have the most up-to-date information. All right, our next question is from Ryder, who reached out through us through Facebook. Hi, Dr. C. I rescued my dog Bailey from the shelter, and she can get pretty skittish even when things are relatively quiet. So I'm a little bit concerned about the holidays, like the 4th of July and New Year's Eve, when people set off fireworks. Is there something my vet can prescribe for her, or something I can get her, like earmuffs? Hi, Ryder. All right, definitely 4th of July and New Year's Eve can be a very scary holiday for pets, okay? The fireworks scare children, they scare adults. So certainly when your pets have no idea what is going on, they're going to scare them, all right? One thing I recommend is if you do have a pet that is indoor, outdoor, during those times when fireworks could be going off, you need to keep your pet inside, okay? That will help drown out some of the noise. And also, I have had a couple of cases several years ago where fireworks were going off and the dog was left in the backyard, and he was so scared that he ran around the yard, and he basically had a heat stroke and he died. Unfortunately, it wasn't anything with the fireworks per se, but he got so anxious. And by the time the owners got home and saw what was going on, it was too late for him. Okay. Now, as far as the earmuffs, there is probably something out there that can be used. I don't know if your dog or cat will tolerate it, but you could certainly look into that. Definitely, if you are worried about your pet and them getting scared, there are some sedatives, okay, that are on the market. Ones that we typically use in veterinary medicine tend to be acepromazine, trazodone, which they use in humans. Gabapentin is another one. And it's more of an injectable medication called dexdomitor, but I do think they have a oral version of it that does help with like noise aversion, so especially like loud noises and the fireworks. Best thing is call your veterinarian, okay? Now, depending on how long ago you had a checkup with your vet may require you to come in order for them to prescribe those medications. They're not really technically control medications per se, but because of the sedative properties and the properties where sometimes humans can abuse them, your vet is going to probably want you to come in, unless you just recently had a visit with your vet or you guys are kind of on a first name basis, then they may be okay with prescribing that medication. And definitely depending on the health condition of your pet too, that may change what your vet recommends. But definitely, if you feel like your pet is going to be scared during those holidays, talk to your veterinarian, see about getting some sedatives. Even if you don't need to use them, it is better to have it on hand, because unfortunately, I have seen what happens when pets get too anxious and they basically freak out because of the fireworks, and we don't want that to happen. All right, Ryder? So good luck with that. All right, so we got another Facebook question, and this is from one of our loyal viewers. This is from Daphne. Dr. Carter, my husband and I like to travel for the holidays. We usually leave our fur babies at home with a professional sitter when we do, but this time we want to take our Yorkies with us when we go out to the West Coast. What do we need to do to prepare for this? Hi, Daphne. All right, listen, your babies are probably going to love to travel with you. Here is a list of some tips when traveling with your pets, and I'm going to discuss some other things too. All right, so the first thing is you're definitely going to want to have a well-ventilated carrier or kind of crate. All right. Now, one thing you do need to do is the airlines you are flying with, you need to check and see what their requirements are as far as the type of carrier that you can use, if it needs to be a soft carrier or can it be a hard carrier, and basically also the dimensions, okay? Most of the time when you're flying with small dogs and small cats, it just has to be basically small enough to, put in the seat in front of you. But if you want to be safe, always, you can get online, the website for the airlines, or you can call someone and speak with a representative, okay? This is another one, but sometimes people forget things. You obviously want to pack their food, okay? You want to pack their food, you want to pack treats. You definitely want to make sure that you've got enough of their medications, they take anything, and then take some extra. You never know if you're going to get stranded or your flight's going to get delayed. Definitely like any collars, leashes, if they have favorite toys, blankets, other things like that, all right? Another thing is to make sure their vaccines are up to date and the pet is microchipped, okay? The reason why being microchipped is so important is because you are going to a new place, okay? And I have seen pets that have, gotten loose basically at the airport. Most of the cases that I saw were a pet that was flying like in cargo, and actually the cage door broke open and the dog was running around on the tarmac. I remember it came into my office and the presenting complaint says hit by airplane. And I said, there's no way this pet wouldn't be alive. Obviously it wasn't hit by an airplane, but it got loose and was running around the tarmac. And of course, someone was able to round it up. But I have had cases where pets have gotten loose and they've ran off. And the microchip is one of the best ways for this pet to be identified. Collars are great. I know a lot of people that have the Apple AirTags and other tracking systems on there, but people can take those off. They can fall off. Okay. So definitely make sure your pet is microchipped. And also, sadly, people are stealing pets out there. Okay. So that's another sad thing. And if your pet was to get taken, that's the only way they can identify. All right. Now, as far as vaccines, every airlines is a little bit different. Typically, to fly in the United States, usually you have to have at least a rabies vaccine up to date. But I recommend having all of the core vaccines up to date, okay? You just need to have them protected, all right? The other thing is you want to make sure to keep them hydrated, okay? Now, if it is a very short flight, like a couple of hours, you don't necessarily have to have like a water bowl in there, because that certainly can get messy. They do make these special little water containers that are portable that you can basically flip open and you squeeze it and water comes out and is like a little bowl too. Another thing you can do is kind of like those water feeders you ever seen, like they use for hamsters and guinea pigs. Those will work. You can sometimes you can hang them kind of inside the crate or the cage. And that's another option too, especially if you're going to be on a very long flight. And you may want to check too with the airlines if they are okay with you letting the pet out, because I know that can be a big issue, especially if you wanted to give it water. Some airlines, if it's not a service animal, they will require you to keep the pet, in their cage the whole entire time. Other thing is, don't forget to bring poop bags, or if you're bringing your cats, a litter box. That's definitely a must. Just like us, our pets got to go. So definitely need to make sure you bring stuff so you can clean it up. Another thing that I would definitely say is the big thing is just be prepared. Okay. If you know you're going to be flying with your pet, say Christmas time, okay, go ahead, beginning of December, schedule an appointment with your vet, talk to the airlines, go ahead and get these things taken care of, ahead of time. The last thing you want to do is be rushing around during the holidays trying to make sure your pet is able to travel with you. Now, it's a little bit easier when you're traveling domestic, but when you travel international, which that could be a whole nother episode, there's a lot more stuff you have to do. All right, but good luck with that, okay? Hopefully you have a great flight and your pets have so much fun over in the West Coast. All right, in case you missed it the first time, here's another opportunity to find out where to send in your questions.
Send in your questions to questions@allhealthtv.com or AllHealthGo on Facebook or YouTube, or visit the Ask the Doc page on our website, allhealthtv.com.
All right, our next question comes to us from Kelly, who just visited us on Instagram. Hi, Dr. Carter. We love our regular vet, but we know her office is closed during the holidays. What should we do if one of our 2 dogs, 1 cat, and 1 rabbit gets sick? We've heard a number of scary stories about taking pets to the animal ER. All right, Kelly. Well, good luck first with all your pets. That's quite a house that you have. The big thing is I will say this to people, okay? I have worked in the emergency business for close to 15 years. I have worked at all kind of different hospitals, different emergency ones, specialty ones. All right. I try to tell people to take horror stories and reviews that they read online with a grain of salt. Understand, a lot of people are coming in when their pet is very, very sick, and sometimes even to the point that they're dying. They are extremely emotional, okay? We are here to help these animals. And unfortunately, sometimes there are outcomes that are out of our control that can be very upsetting to the pet owner, or especially if it comes down to a financial situation, as far as how sick the pet is and making a decision of possibly euthanizing the pet or treatment. So definitely emotions can run very high. And when that happens, people get angry, people get mad, people are upset. And a lot of times they don't think correctly, and they will sometimes just write a bad review, or sometimes they don't quite understand the situation fully. All right. I will say this, there are a lot of very good emergency hospitals around in the South Florida area. Okay. In particular, maybe I'm a little bit partial, but I worked for VetER for Pets, also known as Veterinary Emergency Group. These are a great group of hospitals, okay? We see and we treat all different types of animals, including rabbits, yes, birds. I've had bearded dragons, I've had geckos, I even had a chameleon one time, okay? So certainly during the holidays or the times when your regular vet is closed, they are open to be able to help you out. And there also are other emergency hospitals, okay? The best thing I recommend is to find out who the closest emergency hospital is, or one that is recommended, say, by a family friend or someone who's been there, and go ahead and have that information in the back of your head or put it in your phone or something like that. The last thing you want to be doing is something happens to your pet and you're scrambling around to try and find an emergency hospital, you want to be able to have that information. Okay. But listen, there definitely, I'm not saying that there aren't some horror stories or bad things that happen, but I will say that is few and far between. All right. I would say the majority of my colleagues that I have worked with are vets that I know that they are not in this business for the money. We are in it for the love of animals. Okay. So definitely if you get online and you see a place has, some bad reviews, also look and see about the good reviews. Okay. Because remember, most of the time when we're upset about something and we don't like the service or whatever, what do? We're going to write a bad review. But if we're happy and everything's fine, we go home, we go about our merry way. The last thing we want to do is write a review. So, sometimes you will see a lot more negative reviews because unfortunately that's what people will write, even though there are plenty of people with, good experiences. All right. All right, Kelly. Well, hopefully you don't have to visit the emergency hospital, but if you do, please know that there are quite a few out there that are more than willing to help you and your pets out. All right. This question comes to us from Hannah, who reached out through YouTube. Shalom, Dr. Carter. Every year, my family lights the candles on the menorah for Hanukkah. This year, we have a new addition to the family, a Great Dane named Fievel. Needless to say, the dog is huge and could easily snatch the holiday candles, while our 7-year-old daughter is not paying attention. If he does eat a couple, should we be concerned about him getting sick from the wax? All right. Shalom, Hannah. So I think the name is interesting, first of all. I don't know if you guys remember, but Fievel was a little mouse. Obviously, Great Dane is a lot bigger than mouse, but very super cute name. All right. So as far as the wax goes, Hannah, the wax is not necessarily toxic per se. Okay. Definitely, if you were to eat enough of the wax, it can certainly cause some gastrointestinal signs. Okay. As long as there's not any other chemicals that are in it, because sometimes they can put things, I guess not really like sprinkles, but they can put any things in it to kind of decorate the candle, like sparkles. That's the word I'm thinking of, sparkles. That could possibly, I wouldn't necessarily worry about an obstruction, but that definitely can cause gastrointestinal upset. I'd be a little bit more worried about when the candles are lit, okay? Especially with cats. Cats like to mess with anything, and they see a burning flame, and the first thing they want to do is go and swat at it, all right? It's probably not going to burn them that bad. It is going to hurt a little bit, and they're going to realize, hey, this is hot. I shouldn't touch it. But I definitely have had some pets come in with some burns. Now, most of the time, the burns were either from a hot stove or a candle that fell over and the hot wax burned them. And definitely, those burns can sometimes be pretty bad. Thankfully, if it's a small candle, it's not going to be a very huge burn. But, if it is a very larger candle and there's a lot of wax, actually, it could be a bigger area that it burns. So definitely, if you have a pet that is mischievous and you want to do the lighting the menorah and you want to do the thing with the real candles, that's fine. But maybe what you need to do is for the rest of the night, have one of those, basically those fake candles, okay, that you could replace the real candle with. So that way, if your pet was to try and mess with it, they're not going to get into as much trouble and hopefully not hurt themselves. All right. So good luck with your new Great Dane, Fievel, and hope you have a great Hanukkah too. All right, Hannah? All right. We got another question from our website, allhealthtv.com. You should really go check it out when you get a chance because it's a choke full of great information. All right. And this one is from Hakeem, who asked, yo, Dr. Joy, my family and I celebrate Kwanzaa, and there's a big feast at the end of the 7 days. Our pug is a talented beggar, and even though we tell our guests not to, they feed him anyway. What are some foods that we should absolutely not let him get his paws on? All right. So I didn't even realize that about Kwanzaa. So now I know a little bit more about the holiday. And thank you for sharing that. So listen, when it comes to pets, better safe than sorry. I usually tell pet owners, just try and stay away from human food. Okay. Some dogs and cats can tolerate it. All right. But others can't. All right. We kind of have a saying in veterinary medicine, like typically the day after a lot of holidays, like Christmas, Thanksgiving, things like that. It's like pancreatitis day because we see so many cases of dogs that come in that develop pancreatitis from eating, human food or at least just having some vomiting and diarrhea. But specifically foods that can be a little bit worse off for pets than other ones per se are going to be anything that's got a very high fat content. Okay. So that could be some of your meats, like your pork, your beef, even chicken per se, especially if it's like the skin of the chicken on there. I mean, that's got some fat in there that can certainly cause some problems. Absolutely, grapes and raisins are a big no-no to dogs and cats. And then everybody's like aware of chocolate. Chocolate's also not good. Other things is I know a lot of people like to make bread and things like that. The yeast, okay, that actually, if dogs ingest that, that can expand in the stomach and that can cause an obstruction. So that can certainly be a hazard. Corn cobs. You guys have no idea how many corn cob foreign bodies I have pulled from dogs. Okay. So if you're going to serve corn, all right, and you're afraid your pet is going to get it, it might be better just to basically kind of shave the kernels off of the corn cob if you want to be safe, or just make sure that it's out of reach, because a dog will go and grab it out of the trash can. They will just grab it off out of your hand. They will grab it out of the plate. They will do anything sometime. All right. But listen, there's really no reason to give your dog human food. Okay. And a little bit of plain chicken, a little bit of plain rice is really not that bad. Okay. And sometimes we use that when dogs are having diarrhea kind of as a bland diet. But listen, I have seen dogs that have just eaten one Doritos chip and had blowout bloody diarrhea for a couple of days. So I say better safe than sorry. Just please stress to your guests, just say, hey, listen, guys, if you want to feed my dog, I've got some cool treats. You can get some really cool treats from a lot of these really cutesy boutique pet stores, some of them that might even be holiday themed. Maybe they can give that to your dog, but definitely stay away from the human food. All right. All right. We got another question from our Facebook page, and this one is from Peter. Hi, Doc. Thanksgiving is a big deal around our house. Our menagerie of assorted pets have a free reign of the house. So I'd like to know what foods from Thanksgiving dinner are actually safe to share with the dogs, potbelly pigs, and cats. Oh, wow, Peter, you have a potbelly pig. Okay. So kind of to reiterate, I wouldn't say there's necessarily safe foods, but there are some foods that are less likely to cause GI issues. Okay. I talked about it in the last question. If you are going to give your pet some human food, things like lean ground turkey, okay, just plain chicken, no skin on it, a little bit of cottage cheese, and some plain white rice. Those are all things that are okay to give your pet. Now, some pets could still possibly have a little bit of a reaction to it. So better safe than sorry, and just, not necessarily give them anything. Now, as far as a potbelly pig, pigs can pretty much eat anything. I'm not the best expert on potbelly pigs, so I'm not going to lie, to you and say, oh, I know everything about them. But obviously pets can ingest a lot more stuff as far as human food is concerned versus your dogs and your cats. So if you do have a vet that you take your potbelly pig, I'm going to be honest with you, the best thing is consult with them and ask them if there's anything that they really don't recommend. But, whatever you're feeding your pig already, I know a lot of people that do have potbelly pigs are feeding some human food, basically some leftovers, vegetables, things like that. That's okay. But definitely don't add anything weird to the mix, okay? Because pets are just like, any other animal. They can certainly get stomach upset and they can have some gastrointestinal issues because of that. All right. All right. If you've got answers, we've got questions. And just in case you missed it the first time, yet here's another chance to find out where to send in your questions.
Send in your questions to questions@allhealthtv.com or AllHealthGo on Facebook or YouTube, or visit the Ask the Doc page on our website, allhealthtv.com.
All right, this is going to be our last question, and this is from Macy on Instagram. All right. Hello, doctor. My husband and I are big chocoholics, and we definitely take it to the next level on Valentine's Day. But here's my concern. We're pretty neat, but what if our piece of chocolate ends up out of sight and our dog and our cat get to it? All right, Macy. So yeah, chocolate can be toxic to dogs. The big thing is dark chocolate, cocoa powder, things like that that's more concentrated. Those types of chocolate tend to be more toxic. White chocolate is really not that much of a problem unless they ingest a lot of it. Same thing with milk chocolate, okay? And it really depends on the size of your pet, okay? if you have a concern that your pet may have eaten chocolate, okay, call your regular veterinarian, or you can call any within the emergency hospitals. And we literally have a little calculator that we can figure out based on what type of chocolate your pet ingested and the size of your pet if they are likely to show any signs of toxicity. The most common thing we tend to see is going to be vomiting and diarrhea. Very severe cases can sometimes to progress to basically having seizures. They can sometimes have really elevated blood pressure, high heart rate, all of that stuff. But it typically has to be a very large amount. The good thing about chocolate is we can make your pet vomit it. Okay. And even if it's been 3, 4, 5, sometimes up to 6 hours since they ingested it, we are still able to induce vomiting. And that helps get a lot of that chocolate and the toxins up. So hopefully they don't get as sick. But best thing is to have those emergency numbers on hand. So if your pet does get into something, okay, that you're able to call and find out if it is something to worry about, Macy. All right. All right, guys. Well, this is it. I guys want to wish everyone a great Friday. Happy holidays. And I will see you guys next time. All right. You guys have a great afternoon. Bye.
Send in your questions to questions@allhealthtv.com or AllHealthGo on Facebook or YouTube, or visit the Ask the Doc page on our website, allhealthtv.com.
Funding for this program was brought to you by Michael J. Zinner, MD,